Here are 50 amazing facts to blow your mind. The medieval town of Nordlingen in Bavaria, Germany is situated entirely inside a meteorite crater that's 25 kilometers across. That crater formed 14.5 million years ago. According to a study done by UBC researchers between October 2013 and February 2014, people who are narcissistic, psychopathic, or have Machiavellian tendencies are less convincing online than they are in person. That's because once the non-verbal cues are removed, it's much easier to spot someone with these characteristics. Some frogs throw up their entire stomachs when they've eaten something extremely nasty, such as a poisonous insect. You ever seen Pan's Labyrinth? You know what I'm talking about. The entire stomach is thrown up inside out where the offensive insect falls out, but if it doesn't fall out completely, the frog will actually reach up with its forearms and stroke the inverted lining of its stomach, cleaning it off manually. Unlike other fruit that generally grows on trees, pineapples grow on shrubs, and each pineapple plant only grows one pineapple. In Buddhist and Muslim countries, it's seen as an insult to point the sole of your feet or shoes at somebody. There's a dog cloning service called Sohm Biotech Research Foundation located in South Korea that will actually clone your beloved pooch for around $100,000. Ancient Egyptians rimmed their eyes with coal, a mixture of lead, copper, burned almonds, and soot in order to ward off evil spirits. In Italy, Disney actually changed the name of the movie Moana to Oceana because Moana Pazzi is the name of a famous Italian porn star there. She passed away in 1994, but her name is still oddly a household name. Can't be associated with porn, oh boy! Before Americans landed on the moon for the first time, the majority of Americans did not support the idea of a moon landing and thought the government was spending way too much money on space. Artist Bin Don, who lives in Southern California, creates art by taking photographs of people from the Vietnam War and through the use of sunlight and glass, prints them onto leaves and then casts them in resin. According to the Max Planck Institute for Ornithology in Germany, the frigate bird sleeps while it's flying. It sleeps for about 12 seconds at a time and usually with only half its brain. Over a 24-hour period, they sleep only about 40 minutes. Man, that sounds like a tough life. In March of 2017, a team of Egyptian and German archaeologists found an almost 8-meter tall statue of King Psamatech I, who ruled Egypt from 664 to 610 BC. It was originally believed to be a depiction of Pharaoh Ramses II and is over 3,000 years old. Scientists have developed a reusable sponge called the oleo sponge, which can absorb oil from the surface of water but also below the surface, which will improve our ability to clean up large oil spills because not all of the oil sits on the surface. According to a study published in the Journal Archives of Disease in Childhood by researchers from St. George's University in London, children who spend more than 3 hours in front of a screen or using computers are at a greater risk of developing type 2 diabetes. These children scored higher on various measures of body fat and had higher insulin levels. Theodore Roosevelt won the Nobel Peace Prize in 1906 for his role in mediating the Treaty of Portsmouth, which ended the Russo-Japanese War. He was the first American to get the award, and he used the prize money to fund a trust to promote industrial peace. In March of 2017, geologists Jonathan O'Neill and Richard Carlson uncovered ancient minerals that are remnants of the Earth's original crust, which first formed more than 4.2 billion years ago. That discovery was made in northern Quebec, Canada. Hey Richard, I've been digging. I think I found something here, eh? According to a study done by Enigma in February of 2017, key brain regions are smaller in people with ADHD. These include the parts responsible for emotions, goal-directed action, learning, and responding to stimuli, rewards, and motivation, as well as memory. Cardiff, Wales couple Martin Shervington and Eliza Evans got married in virtual reality in May of 2017. The wedding took place at a virtual nightclub called The Spire. They invited 150 of their friends and family to attend, many of whom whom wouldn't have been able to make it to a real-life wedding in Cardiff. They tied the knot on a virtual reality social network called AltSpace VR. Dr. Hadi Shafi, assistant professor of medicine at Brigham and Women's Hospital and Harvard Medical School, is working on making a new device that measures sperm concentration using your phone's camera. Oh, I see all kinds of issues with this. According to a study by Scott Bobeck, a vertebrate ecologist at Dickinson College in Pennsylvania, boa constrictors don't suffocate their prey, they actually cut off their blood supply. When it tightens its body around its prey, it puts pressure on the victim's circulatory system, and their arterial pressures drop, venous pressures go up, and their blood vessels close. On March 24th, 2001, in a spring training game between the Arizona Diamondbacks and San Francisco Giants, pitcher Randy Johnson hit a pigeon while pitching, with the bird exploding in midair. Oxygen masks in airplanes aren't actually connected to an oxygen tank. Instead, they use a chemical reaction to generate it on the spot. On March 23, 1962, Jacqueline Kennedy was given a horse named Sadar by Muhammad Ayub Khan, the president of Pakistan. Japan actually has Braille on their beer cans that says alcohol and sometimes even the manufacturer's name. Richard Nixon has been featured on the cover of Time magazine more than any other individual, having appeared 55 times. Pope Benedict XIV is a licensed pilot who can legally fly small engine planes or helicopters. President Theodore Roosevelt, the 32nd president of the United States, has a tattoo image of his family crest tattooed on his chest. Bon Iver from Bruceville, Indiana, built 2 roller coasters in his backyard. He calls them the Blue Flash, and he built them for his grandchildren with no prior experience from scrap metal that he collected and then welded together. Oh, that's nice. Hey kids, if you're watching, don't ride Grandpa's death machine. There's a temple called Wat Sampran in Thailand that has a giant dragon wrapped around the outside of the building that's approximately 17 stories high. On the grounds, there's also various animal sculptures such as an elephant, rabbit, dolphins, and another large building in the shape of a tortoise. In Murphy, North Carolina, there's a place called Fields of the Wood Bible Park that has a mountain called the 10 Commandments Mountain. The 10 Commandments are literally etched into the side of its grassy slope. Nelson Mandela was an amateur boxer. He trained at the Donaldson Orlando Community Center gym in Johannesburg. He enjoyed the science of boxing more than the violence of it. In Bolivian cities, there's a program called the Mama Zebra Program where a team of young people dress in zebra costumes and dance in the streets to make drivers and pedestrians aware of traffic rules. The zebra was picked because of the pattern of the zebra crossing. In 2006, the annual Discover Santa convention was held in Branson, Missouri. There were workshops, vendor fairs, events, and networking. Over 300 Santas showed up. It was the first true modern-day Santa convention. On the 94th floor of the John Hancock Center in Chicago, there is a steel and glass structure called Tilt that allows people to hover 305 meters over the city. It has 3 overhead hydraulic actuators that rotates the enclosed moving platform and tilts you out 30 degrees over the edge of the building. The makers of sriracha hot sauce, Huifong Foods, chose a green cap for their bottle of sriracha to represent a fresh chili stem. Bless those people, they make delicious hot sauce. During World War II, Britain's special operations executives equipped secret agents with itching powder that was placed into condoms destined for use by German servicemen stationed in Norway. I know it's war, but that's just cruel. Koreans donated billions of euros worth of gold jewelry to help pay down the nation's International Monetary Fund debt in the wake of the 1997 Asian financial crisis. It actually enabled them to pay off the debt ahead of schedule. The government asked the citizens to donate their gold jewelry, and millions of people did so by donating heirlooms, wedding rings, trophies, and small gold figurines. 227 tons of gold was collected within months. The world's narrowest street is in the city of Reutlingen in Germany. City Street number 77 ranges from just 31 centimeters at its narrowest to 50 centimeters at its widest. It was built in 1727. In 1874, earmuffs were invented by a 15-year-old boy named Chester Greenwood from Maine. He shaped 2 pieces of wire into circles and then connected them with a wire headband. His grandmother then sewed velvet and beaver fur to the circles to keep out the wind. He was 18 when he got the patent in 1877, and by 1883, his factory was producing 30,000 1,000 earmuffs a year. By the time of his death in 1937, he was producing over 400,000. There's a Pac-Man-inspired entertainment center in Illinois called Level 257. It's an over 3,900 square meter playground with bowling, arcade games, and food. The kill screen on Pac-Man is level 256, so level 257 symbolizes the next level of play. There's even a store that sells Pac-Man memorabilia, hundreds of which are only available there. The Maya and other ancient peoples of southern North America went to dentists to beautify their teeth with notches, grooves, and semi-precious stones like jade. The Holiday Inn Resort in Panama City Beach, Florida has a special daily wake-up call for spring breakers, blasting Circle of Life, Elton John's hit song from the Lion King musical. They blasted at their balconies, a tradition which began in 2012. American aviator Charles Augustus Lindbergh, who made the first solo non-stop flight across the Atlantic in 1927, was a polygamist with 3 other families and wives in Germany and Switzerland. Jeez, dude got busy. Of the 24 men who traveled to the moon on Apollo 8 and Apollo 10 through 17 missions, 20 were Boy Scouts. That includes 11 of the 12 moonwalkers and all 3 members of the Apollo 13 crew. Thomas Edison proposed to his second wife, Mina Miller Edison, by using Morse code. Oh, that's romantic. In Mount Rushmore's original design, the 4 presidents were actually meant to be carvings from the waist up, but insufficient funding brought the carver to stop after the faces were completed. Between 2002 and 2010, almost 18,000 men made trips to ERs for zipper mishaps. That's nearly 1/5 of all penis injuries during this time. Researchers at the Worcester Polytechnic Institute are developing a method to use the vascular network in spinach leaves to deliver blood, oxygen, and nutrients to grow human tissue. They hope that in the future they will be able to use this to filter blood better to damaged tissue in the human heart. Theodore Roosevelt was an avid reader. Now that's not that amazing, but what is that he was known to read on average a book a day while he was president. He usually read several books at a time, rotating between them depending on his mood. In 1965, artist Salvador Dali drew a picture of Jesus on the cross and donated it to Rikers Island in New York. It hung in the dining hall for 16 years when the prison administration began to fear that the prisoners might damage the painting, and it was moved to a plexiglass case in the lobby of the prison. It turns out it wasn't the prisoners they needed to worry about, because in 2003 it was stolen by 4 prison officials, including a deputy. Officials sometimes clean them with giant iron and wood rolling balls, which is the same method they used over a century ago. There's an Easter tradition in Czechoslovakia where women get whipped and have cold water thrown on them. Legend says that it will bring health and beauty to those women in the coming year. People who are always giving their opinions on topics that are beyond their area of expertise are called ultra-crepidarians. The University of Victoria's Law Library has a black lab named Echo that can be checked out from the library for 30 minutes as a stress reliever for students. It's the only law library in Canada that provides this service. Shaquille O'Neal and Bob Lanier are tied for having the biggest feet in the NBA. They both have size 22 feet, with Shaq being a height of 2.16 meters and Lanier being 2.08. In 1938 and throughout the Second World War, St. Erman's Hotel was the home base for secret British spies and the wartime intelligence community. The British Secret Intelligence Service, Section D, took up the entire top floors of the hotel and had explosives stashed there, while many other guests staying at the hotel had no idea. Researchers at the University of Wisconsin-Madison have developed a new technique to replace the bulk of toxic and non-biodegradable materials in smartphone microchips with a transparent, flexible material made from wood pulp. There's an electric catfish that exists that generates an electric shock up to 400 volts. It's produced by specialized gland cells on the side of their skin. The catfish is in complete control of these shocks, which they can use to their advantage. The United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization estimates that around 795 million people in the world, or 1 in 9, were suffering from chronic undernourishment between 2014 and 2016. And almost all of those people live in developing countries. Forest bathing, which is basically just being in the presence of trees, is a Japanese practice that is proven to lower heart rate and blood pressure. It also reduces stress hormone production production boosts the immune system and overall feelings of well-being. See that? Just go hug a tree, you'll feel better. Red eye from flash photography is caused by the light of the flash happening too fast for the pupil to close. The light passes into the eye through the pupil, reflects off the fundus at the back of the eyeball, and appears red because of blood in the eye. According to a DNA study by geneticists at Germany's University of Tübingen in 2010, King Tut was a frail pharaoh with malaria and a bone disease. These health issues could be due to the new discovery that he was the product of incest. In 2002, Elmo appeared in front of the Education Appropriations Subcommittee to encourage more spending on music research and musical instruments for school programs. He also attended an education event at the White House. In 2007, NASA bought a $19 million toilet from the Russian aerospace company SP Korolev Rocket and Space Public Corporation. The reason that it's so expensive is because the toilet recycles urine into drinking water. Well, at least you know where your tax dollars are going. The 24th floor of the Empire State Building used to be full of nap pods, which were cushy chairs that allowed people to take 20-minute naps. Each eye can only hold about 7 microliters of fluid, which is why tears run down your face when you cry. That's also why you get a runny nose when you cry, because the drainage ducts get flooded. Somnophobia is the fear of sleeping or falling asleep. It's closely related to the fear of the unknown because people suffering with this disorder are often afraid of what might happen when they fall asleep. Spiders crawling in my mouth. That's my nightmare. The captain on Cap'n Crunch cereal is not actually a captain, he's a commander. He only has 3 stripes on his sleeve, which makes him a commander. Captains have 4. Yeah, tell your friends about that one, ruin their childhoods. Scientists have found that listening to music releases dopamine, a neurotransmitter in the brain that's associated with pleasure. This explains why music is so significant for humans even though it has no clear survival value. Moving a snail at least 19.8 meters away will make it less likely to return because it will lose its bearings. Snails' homing instincts only cover short distances. Millennials have a low average net worth of only about $17,612 on average. And this is almost entirely because of student loans. There's a frog called the southern gastric brooding frog that uses its stomach as a womb. The mother swallows her own eggs and stops producing hydrochloric acid in her stomach to make sure that she doesn't digest her own young. But the best part is that she eventually gives birth through propulsive vomiting. The world record for the fastest time to pierce 4 coconuts with just a finger is 12.15 seconds and was accomplished by Ho Ang Hui, aka Master Ho from Malaysia in Milan, Italy on April 21st, 2011. How does that work? It's very confusing but amazing. During the Second World War, when meeting with his war cabinet, Winston Churchill always insisted that they use noiseless typewriters as he just disliked the noise. In 2016, the Cheetos company started selling Cheetos-scented perfume called Cheeto for $18.99. They've also released a Cheetos bronzer to get what they call the Cheetos Kissed Glow. Wait, why wouldn't I just open a bag of Cheetos and just rub it on my face like a Oompa Loompa? Before refrigerators, people in Russia and Finland used to put live Russian brown frogs in milk to keep it fresh. The amphibian skin has peptides and antimicrobial compounds that kept it fresh. Frog milk. There's a bridge in Dumbarton, Scotland called the Overton where local dogs keep mysteriously committing suicide. Some accounts say as many as 600 dogs have died there. In North Korea, nearly 100% of eligible voters vote even though there's only one option on the ballot. Yeah, sounds legit. During the Second World War, it's estimated that only 14% to 19% of kamikaze aircraft successfully hit their target. Many were shot down before they even got close to the ships that they were trying to damage. In November of 2016 in South Korea, more than 600,000 students wrote the annual college entrance exam, which is extremely important for their futures in their competitive country. But to make sure the roads were clear for the students to arrive on time, trucks were banned, construction sites were paused, and businesses were opened late. Transport authorities even stopped all airport landings and takeoffs for 30 minutes in the afternoon so as to not disturb the main language listening test. If you can't tell, they take those exams seriously. All cats, including tigers, have a specific scent because they have individualized scent glands. The individual scent helps cubs find their mothers and allows them to identify certain individuals. There's an orchestra based in Vienna that performs on instruments that are made entirely out of vegetables. They call themselves the Vegetable Orchestra, clever name, and they use a variety of vegetable instruments to create a very unique sound. What sound does an eggplant make? In Helsingborg, Sweden, there's a new museum called the Museum of Failure, which opened on June 7th, 2017. Samuel West, the creator of the museum, says the purpose of it is to think differently about failure and to realize that you can't have success without it. There's a bird called the secretary bird that kicks and stomps on their prey's head until it dies or is incapacitated, specifically with large lizards and venomous snakes. It can kick with 195 newtons, which is equivalent to about 5 times their own body weight. I'll mash you up good. The exclamation part only became a key on the keyboard in 1970. Before then, people would type a period and then use the backspace to go back and put an apostrophe above it. Most car airbags deploy at a speed of up to 322 kilometers an hour. An airbag can actually cause serious damage to a person at that speed and easily break your nose. Actor James Franco has been teaching film classes at UCLA School of Theater, Film, and Television since 2012. He's also working to get his PhD at Yale University. Between 753 and 476 AD, the Romans used to think that unibrows were beautiful and desirable features on a woman. Many women would even create one by painting in between their eyebrows if they couldn't naturally grow one. Really? Caterpillar? Between the okay, whatever. Black was the only color that the Ford Model T came in between 1914 and 1925 because it was the only color paint that could be dried quickly, and speed was super important for the Ford plant because of its enormous volume. There is a 24-hour-a-day live-streamed show called Keeping Up with the Kardashians, where GoPro cameras film 4 kittens available for adoption living in an oversized dollhouse. Oh, that's so cute! Paracheer is a new type of cheerleading that's currently in development. It will involve mixed teams of disabled and non-disabled athletes, and they will create routines incorporating jumps, dance, and stunts. There's a cafe in Tokyo called Butler Cafe where all the waiters are butlers. You can even get butlers to call you prince or princess. Naked mole rats can survive for up to 18 minutes in an environment without oxygen. They do this by using a metabolic process usually associated with plants where they switch to a system run by fructose, which doesn't require oxygen. Mother Nature's a mad scientist. NASA astronaut Peggy Whitson has had more spacewalking time than any other female astronaut, and she's the first woman to command the International Space Station twice, and if that wasn't enough, she's the oldest woman to ever go into space at the age of 56. Superfetation is the term used to describe getting pregnant again while already pregnant. This happens when another fetus is conceived days or even weeks after its sibling. Underneath a golf driving range at Van Cortlandt Park in the Bronx, there's a massive $3.2 billion water filtration plant taking up enough space to hold Yankee Stadium. This plant can fill over 1 billion liters of water every day. James Earl Jones, the voice of Darth Vader, developed a stutter as a child that became so severe that sometimes he could only talk to himself or his immediate family. This continued into high school, where his English teacher suggested that he memorize speeches and enter oratorical contests to get rid of his stutter, which ended up being an extremely successful cure. Astronaut Buzz Aldrin recorded a song called Rocket Experience to commemorate the 40th anniversary of his walk on the moon and to help benefit organizations dedicated to space exploration. Andy Garcia was born with an undeveloped conjoined twin the size of a tennis ball on his shoulder, which he eventually had surgically removed. Charles Dickens used to have a compass with him to make sure that he always slept and wrote facing north. He believed that doing this improved his creativity. The W on a can of oil for your car, for example 10W40, means winter. The lower the W number, the better the oil performs in cold temperature. In India, if a tree gets sick from pests, fungi, or insects, they have an ambulance that comes to help it. It carries pesticides, fungicides, and insecticides. In 2012, Qantas Airways QF1121 was Australia's first commercial flight using sustainably derived biofuel. One of the engines was powered by fuel made from cooking oil. For 5 weeks in 2015, there was a pop-up art exhibition inside a resort in the United Kingdom that was created by Banksy and was called Dismaland. It was an apocalyptic theme park including themes of anti-consumerism and social critiques on celebrity culture, immigration, and law enforcement. In many hotels across the world, there are green or black arrows located around the rooms, such as on a desk or the ceiling. These arrows are called Qibla pointers, and their purpose is to provide direction to Kaaba in Mecca, Saudi Arabia, so that Muslim guests can orient themselves for prayer towards Mecca. During the week of May 17, 2017, researchers announced that infertile mice gave birth after being implanted with artificial 3D printed ovaries. The goal is that this ovarian bioprosthesis will one day be able to be used in humans. In Ohio, DUI offenders receive a scarlet letter license plate so that they can be publicly identified. The red on yellow license plates have existed since 1967 but became mandatory on January 1st, 2014. During the 1960s, Nintendo used to run love hotels in Japan. They were hotels that had hourly rates and were mostly used by couples and prostitutes. In 2016, a 10-year-old Finnish boy found a bug in Instagram's code that allowed other people's comments to be deleted and received $10,000 in bounty from Facebook for the discovery. In Indian culture, the left hand is thought to be unclean because it's for wiping your bottom, while the right hand is for eating, shaking hands, and so on. So while in India, you should always use your right hand to greet someone, exchange money, or pick up merchandise. According to a study done at Harvard University in 2016, having no friends could be as deadly as smoking. Researchers discovered a link between loneliness and the levels of a blood-clotting protein that causes heart attacks and strokes. Male jumping spiders dance and even sing to win over females. The males make vibrations by rubbing together their two body segments, and the females can hear the songs through ear-like slits in their legs. The nursery rhyme Mary Had a Little Lamb is actually based on a real-life woman named Mary Sawyer from Sterling, Massachusetts, who really did have a lamb follow her to school one day around 1816. More people actually drown in fresh water than salt water. In fact, around 90% of drownings occur in fresh water, such as swimming pools, bathtubs, and rivers. A study done in 2015 by Princeton researcher Michael J. Mina and his colleagues found that the measles virus erases the immune system's memory, which leaves patients vulnerable to other infectious diseases for up to 3 years afterwards. In the United States, people can send a letter to the FBI to request a copy of the file that they have on themselves. Eminem holds the world record for having the most words in a hit single, with his song Rap God, which includes 1,560 words within 6 minutes and 4 seconds. That's an average of 4.28 words per second. The oldest bookstore in the world that's still in operation is called Livraria Bertrand. It opened in 1732 in Portugal and is the oldest and largest bookstore chain there. Ketchup can actually go bad, but its shelf life is pretty long because of the acidity of the tomatoes and vinegar and the amount of sugar. An unopened container can be good for up to 2 years past the expiration date. The world's first nudist colony was called the Fellowship of the Naked Trust. It was founded in India in 1891. Steve Jobs originally called and asked actor Jeff Goldblum to be the voice of Siri, but Goldblum didn't realize it was Jobs, so he turned it down. In the United States, it's required that homeopathy treatments be labeled not effective unless they are scientifically proven otherwise. Alcohol myopia is the effect from alcohol abuse that causes intoxicated people to respond almost entirely to their immediate environment, making them unable to think about future consequences from their actions. The reason actor Alan Rickman's terrified face is so realistic when he falls to his death in Die Hard is because he was dropped earlier than expected. He agreed to fall onto an airbag 7.6 meters below on the count of 3, but instead he was dropped on the count of 1 because the director thought it would be a better reaction. Model Carolina Kirkova does not have a belly button, and instead has a smooth indentation because of a surgery that she had as an infant. To hide this, a belly button is often photoshopped onto her pictures. An 11-year-old girl named Tilly Smith from Oxshott, Surrey, saved 100 tourists from a tsunami in Thailand on December 26, 2004. She had seen key signs of a tsunami in the sea that she remembered from a geography lesson 2 weeks earlier. Will Ferrell turned down $29 million to film a sequel for Elf. He didn't think that he could handle the criticism of people accusing him of doing it just for the money if it turned out bad. Disney's motion capture animated film Mars Needs Moms cost $150 million to make, but only earned $6.9 million in its debut at the domestic box office. It was the 12th worst opening of all time. In Beverly Hills, it's illegal for pet stores to sell dogs and cats that are not from a shelter or rescue. When cats are declawed, their toes are amputated at the knuckle, taking off bone along with tendons and the claw. In 1994, the CEOs of the 7 biggest tobacco companies testified in front of Congress that nicotine wasn't addictive, even though there was overwhelming evidence proving otherwise. The Seinfeld episode called The Contest won an Emmy Award for writing and was named the best TV episode of all time by TV Guide in 2009. The entire episode was about masturbation, but the subject was never directly mentioned and no real euphemisms were used either. Queensland is the only state in Australia where it is illegal to keep domestic rabbits as pets. Offenders are charged a fine of $45,500. In 2015, a petition to change the name of Australia's currency from the Australian dollar to the Dollary-Doo received more than 50,000 signatures. Dollary-Doos being a reference to an episode of The Simpsons. Former US FBI Director James Comey requires every new special agent and intelligence analyst to go to the United States Holocaust Memorial Museum as part of their training. In 2002, a school teacher turned into an uncontrollable pedophile after developing a brain tumor, but after the cancer was removed, his obsession stopped. The case was believed to be the first ever to link a brain tumor with that condition. According to research done at the University of Arizona, subtle changes in Ronald Reagan's speech patterns gave clues to his declining mental state years before he was diagnosed with Alzheimer's. There are more trees on Earth than stars in the Milky Way. Now, there are no exact figures, but it's believed that there are 3 trillion trees on Earth, which far outnumbers the 100 billion stars in the Milky Way. The phrase is actually anchors away, A-W-E-I-G-H, not anchors away. The meaning is not meant to be away as in removed to a distance, but instead it's away, which means the anchor has just begun to put weight onto the rope or chain that's being hauled up by. Michael Jackson, Madonna, and Prince were all born in the Great Lakes region within 2 months of each other in the summer of 1958. In 1948, there was a waterfall in Times Square called the Bond Waterfall. It was 8.2 meters high, 40.2 meters long, and was created using nearly 38,000 liters of water, which pumped over the falls every minute. In February of 2017, a Cheeto that looked like Harambe sold on eBay for almost $100,000 after a 132 episode bidding war. Wagyu beef is the world's most expensive beef. It costs around $50 per 100 grams for the meat itself, and a 2000 vintage Côte de Boeuf, a rib steak, would cost $3,200. The reason that food doesn't taste very good on airplanes is because our taste buds and sense of smell are affected while you're flying. Our perception of saltiness and sweetness drops when we're in a pressurized cabin. Oysters are actually alive when you eat them. They deteriorate quickly, so they're served as fresh as possible, which means they're usually still alive. Entrepreneur Kevin Kumala and a school friend studied the field of bioplastics and created their own recipe using kavasa starch, vegetable oil, and organic resins. The 100% bio-based material was biodegradable and compostable, breaking down over a period of months on land or at sea, or instantly in hot water. Kumala claims that it leaves no trace of toxic residue, allowing it to be dissolved and drank, working towards eliminating pollution. There's actually a scale to measure erections called the erection hardness scale. It was created by scientists in the 1990s while they were testing Viagra. Someone who completely abstains from drinking alcohol is called a teetotaler. To teetotal simply means to never drink. There's a website called the Ring Finders jewelers.com that provides metal detecting specialists that will hunt for and find any jewelry that you've lost for a nominal fee. They've made almost 3,000 recoveries worth more than $5.2 million. The arrangement of 4 to 10 spikes on the tails of stegosaurid dinosaurs is called the phagomizer. The spikes are believed to have been used as a defense mechanism against predators. In 2017, a 70-year-old Kansas man wrote a note to his wife that said that he would rather be in jail than be at home. Later in the day, he robbed a bank and told the teller working that he had a gun. After the teller gave him $3,000 in cash, the man waited in the lobby for police to arrive and arrest him. Because of his mental health, he was sentenced to 6 months under house arrest. Yeah, it didn't exactly turn out the way he wanted. A beta male mandrill is unable to reproduce offspring when they mate. However, when they become the dominant alpha male, their testicles get bigger and their skin color changes to red, which means that they are now able to reproduce. When an alpha male loses its dominance, the exact opposite happens. Christopher Robin Milne, who was the inspiration for Christopher Robin in Winnie the Pooh, written by his father A.A. Milne, served in World War II and killed 28 soldiers in the Battle of the Bulge. According to a story on Tribunus.com, a Marine fighting in Afghanistan called customer support for his M107 Barrett rifle when it malfunctioned in a firefight. The customer support employee talked him through the instructions on how to fix it, and the Marine was back in the fight moments later. A 34-year-old British man blew a small hole in his throat when he attempted to hold in a sneeze. See, should never hold in a sneeze. In 1994, a school teacher named Annalisa Flanagan broke the world record for loudest voice. She yelled the word quiet, which registered at 121.7 decibels. That's the equivalent of a jet engine. When comedian Jon Stewart wanted to propose to his wife, he called Will Shortz, who was the crossword editor at the New York Times. Stewart asked Shortz to help create a personalized crossword for his proposal to her, and he obliged. They married in 2000. After Heath Ledger's tragic death in 2008, Johnny Depp, Jude Law, and Colin Farrell all took up his unfinished role for the movie The Imaginarium of Dr. Parnassus. The 3 actors then all donated their respective salaries to Ledger's daughter. Before William Goldman wrote The Princess Bride, he asked his young daughters what they wanted a story to be about. One said a princess and the other said a bride. Goldman said that'll be the title. In 2005, a judge in Niagara Falls sentenced all 46 people in his courtroom to jail after a cell phone rang and no one took responsibility for it. The 46 defendants spent 2 hours in a holding cell before being released, as the sentence was considered an abuse of judicial power. The common expression, "you can't have your cake and eat it too," was originally, "you can't eat your cake and have it too." This makes a lot more sense if you think about it. Actor Dick Van Dyke paid Walt Disney $4,000 to play the role of the banker Mr. Dawes Sr. in the 1964 classic film Mary Poppins. He was also, of course, more known for playing the role of Bert, the chimney sweeper. When a mother driving her child swerved her car off the road and into water, she panicked like anyone else would. However, this woman remembered an episode of Mythbusters that said to wait until the car fills up with water before opening the car door so the pressure becomes equalized. Despite wanting to get out, she patiently waited with her child for the car to be completely filled up. She then easily opened the car door and the two safely escaped. Facebook founder Mark Zuckerberg spent $30 million for 4 houses that surrounded his own because he wanted more privacy. The country of Finland has 10 trees for every 1 person in the world. The production of the movie No Country for Old Men in Marfa, Texas had to be temporarily shut down for the day because smoke was rising from the nearby movie set of There Will Be Blood. President Franklin D. Roosevelt's Scottish Terrier Fala was so well known among Americans during World War II that American soldiers would ask other soldiers what the name of his dog was so that they could confirm that the soldiers that they were questioning weren't German spies. During the Donner Party in 1846, a local Native American tribe called the Washoe tribe attempted to help the struggling travelers by giving them food. The Donner Party refused their help and even shot at the tribe when they approached. The tribe decided to stop trying to help and eventually watched as the party turned to cannibalism on themselves. At the MTV Movie Awards in 2009, Sacha Baron Cohen dressed as a half-naked version of his character Bruno and landed on the lap of rapper Eminem after a planned flying malfunction onto the stage. Eminem left the awards disgusted, but later revealed that the two planned the stunt and he laughed in his hotel room for 3 hours. When two actors from the hit television show Lost each got in trouble for drunk driving, they were both later killed off in an episode titled Two for the Road. Blimps use less fuel on average in 2 weeks than 747 planes used to just taxi onto the runway. About 1 million people in Beijing live underground in nuclear bunkers that were constructed during the Cold War era. According to the Food and Agricultural Organization of the United Nations, out of the 250,000 to 300,000 known edible plants in the world, only 150 to 200 are actually consumed by humans. The same study also found that 75% of the world's food is generated from 12 plants and 5 different animal species. In 2001, a child psychologist was condemned for allowing a 15-year-old boy who was dying of cancer to have sex with a prostitute. The average weight of a common seagull is only 0.45 kilograms or 1 pound. The cast of Star Wars: A New Hope became famous so quickly that when Harrison Ford went to buy a record from a store one day, fans noticed him, rushed him, and ripped off half of his shirt. According to a study published by PLOS ONE, researchers found that looking left when lying about something is not true at all when they studied people giving testimonies for missing relatives. There was no correlation between the people who murdered their family members and looking left. Not making eye contact, however, is a different story. The popular holiday song Jingle Bells, written by James Lord Pierpont in the 1800s, was not originally a Christmas song, but a drinking song that was sang for horse sleigh races in Meadford, Massachusetts. It was also first performed during a Thanksgiving service, not a Christmas one. Minnesota is the only state in the contiguous United States that has always had a feasible gray wolf population. The Guinness World Record for the most perfect games of Wii bowling occurred in 2012 by an 85-year-old man named John Bates from Onalaska, Wisconsin. He recorded himself completing 20,000 perfect games on hundreds of videos. The Great Seattle Fire on June 6, 1889 killed over 1 million rats, which actually helped the city get rid of its uncontrollable rodent population. The 1988 film Die Hard was originally a sequel to the 1968 film The Detective, starring Frank Sinatra. Because of this, Fox was contractually obligated to offer Sinatra the role, but he turned it down due to his old age. The largest population of Japanese people who live outside of Japan are in Brazil, with about 1,500,000. There was a British writer named Virginia Woolf who killed herself by filling her overcoat pockets with rocks and walking into the River Ouse by her house. This was because of her poor mental health and is a reminder to this day to many people to take care of your mental health. In 2017, Harvard scientists somehow inserted a GIF into the DNA of bacteria. The GIF was 5 frames of a galloping horse, and the researchers did this by transferring the moving image into the nucleotides of E. coli bacteria. There's a Japanese legend from 1803 in the Hitachi province called Utsurobun, where a young attractive woman washed ashore in an empty boat and spoke an unknown language. She also held a box that she would not let anyone touch or open. The people who discovered her repaired her odd boat and set her back into the sea. Since 1983, every member of Congress has received a monthly magazine subscription from Hustler. They tried to stop the subscription in 1984, but the US District Court later ruled that Hustler had the right to keep sending them subscriptions under the First Amendment. According to National Geographic, the Netherlands is the world's second largest exporter of food behind the United States, even though it's a small country with a highly dense population. Coffins and caskets are not the same thing. A coffin usually has 6 sides, while a casket only has 4 sides and is also rectangular. Coffins with a curve at the shoulder are the ones that are most commonly used in the United Kingdom. Before the invention of the elevator, the more expensive apartments were located on the lower floor floors instead of the upper ones. In 1990, someone watching America's Most Wanted thought that they recognized a girl who was kidnapped on the show. After alerting authorities, it was discovered that the girl was not the one from the show, but another one who was also kidnapped earlier. She was safely found and returned to her mother. The oldest pub in Britain is the Old Ferryboat Inn on the River Cam. The owners have said that the pub was founded in 560 AD, but it was more likely founded around 1400 AD according to estimates. There are no movies that have won Best Picture that have also featured an exploding helicopter. Also, the director who had exploded the most helicopters in his films is Roland Emmerich with a total of 10. He exploded 4 in Independence Day, 3 in Godzilla, and 3 in White House Down. The first black mayor in the Western world was Severiano de Heredia, who was born in Havana, Cuba. He became the mayor of Paris, France in 1879. Heredia died of meningitis at his home in Paris in 1901 at the age of 64. The milk from an eland antelope can last up to 8 months if prepared properly, compared to a cow which only lasts a few days. They can also produce more milk than a cow and is known to taste good. After famous science fiction writer Isaac Asimov had to have a triple bypass surgery in 1983, he contracted HIV from a blood transfusion. He later contracted and died of AIDS, but the cause was kept secret from the public because of the reputation the illness had at the time. In 1974, the Cleveland Indians held a 10-cent beer night during a game against the Texas Rangers. The fans got so drunk that they rioted during the 9th inning and caused the game to be forfeited, and the players had to fight them off with baseball bats. In 1998, a brave boy happened to survive a murder attempt by an older person. Despite the threats, the boy gave a deposition as to who the attacker was. The attacker was sent to prison for 40 years, and the victim's family was awarded $150 billion. Actor Jim Carrey's chipped tooth from the movie Dumb and Dumber was real. He took the crown out for production of the movie to look even dumber. The United States has over 90,000 metric tons of nuclear waste and nowhere to properly dispose of it. The waste is mostly stored where it's generated at 80 sites in 35 different states, and it's expected to increase to around 140,000 metric tons over the next several decades. Lee Harvey Oswald, who is also known as the man who assassinated John F. Kennedy Jr., was a US Marine but defected and joined the Soviet Union in 1959, where he also met his wife and had a child. However, after deciding that he made a mistake moving to Russia, Oswald immigrated back to the US with his family in 1962. We're not only polluting Earth, but Mars as well. In 2012, NASA discovered a bright object on the surface of Mars and became intrigued as to what it could be. Then they later found out that it was just a piece of plastic from the Curiosity rover. There's a competitive international league for the popular game Tag You're It, and it's called Globe Chase Tag. Feel free to play tag in the comments. You're it! The 5-year cost to support a heroin addiction in the United States is $318,500. The 5-year cost to support an oxycodone addiction is $132,405. The average adult produces anywhere from 1 to 3 pints of gas a day that's passed through the anus 14 to 23 times a day. According to Vocative, there are 328 girls in the United States with the name ABCDE as of 2018. The name is pronounced Abcd. The world's most popular fruit is the tomato. I personally completely disagree. Tomatoes are disgusting. In 1998, McDonald's invested in the now popular burrito restaurant Chipotle. By 2015, McDonald's owned 90% of Chipotle's stake, but parted ways and sold their portion a year later because it was considered a distraction. According to Vsauce, the weight of all the electrons in motion that make up the internet at any given time is equal to 50 grams. This means that the internet is estimated to weigh about the same as a medium-sized egg or a strawberry. The famous gunfight at the OK Corral in Tombstone, Arizona in 1881 between the Earp brothers along with Doc Holliday against the Cowboys lasted only 30 seconds. In 2012, a Nebraska woman sold a 3-year-old chicken McNugget from McDonald's on eBay for $8,100 because it apparently resembled George Washington. A Florida man wrestled a 2.1 meter long bull shark in 2001 after it attacked his nephew and bit off his arm. The uncle dragged the shark to the shore where it was shot by a park ranger. He was also able to retrieve the arm back, where doctors successfully attached it back to the boy who later recovered. The classical Greek term for the word tragedy is goat song, because scholars believe that the main prize in competitions of dancing or singing during that time was a goat. Soldiers with mentally low IQs were drafted into the military for the Vietnam War to boost numbers. Unfortunately, these soldiers were 3 times more likely to die than any other soldiers. According to astronomers Una Kohlmeier of the Carnegie Institute for Science and Sean Raymond of the Laboratoire d'Astrophysique de Bordeaux, the moons of moons are called submoons. However, other scientists are using the term moons. There are no known moons in our solar system. The Beatles wanted to make a live-action movie of Lord of the Rings in 1969. Paul McCartney was to play Frodo Baggins, Ringo Starr was to be Samwise Gamgee, George Harrison was to be Gandalf, and John Lennon was to be Gollum. They even approached Stanley Kubrick to direct the film, but he didn't take the offer. Eventually, author J.R.R. Tolkien decided not to make the film. The planet Uranus was originally named the Georgian Sidus after King George III of England. German astronomer Johann Elliot Bode proposed the name Uranus, and it did not become the common name for the planet until 1850. A giant sequoia in California's Kings Canyon National Park, measuring 91 meters, was named the country's national Christmas tree in 1925. The hardest wood in the world is the Australian bull oak, which requires 2,295 kilograms of force to embed a steel ball into it. In contrast, the softest wood in the world is the quipo, which only requires around 10 kilograms of force to embed a steel ball inside of it. A fecal transplant is the procedure of transferring stool from a healthy donor into a gastrointestinal tract of a patient. This is performed when antibiotics kill off too many of the good bacteria in the digestive system. According to health experts, getting red eyes from swimming is not a result from contact with too much chlorine. They say that it's actually the result of being exposed to bodily fluids in the water, such as urine, feces, and sweat. Gut microbiota can cause a change in one's mood or personality by communicating with the brain. A state law in Kansas requires that pedestrians crossing a highway at night must be wearing tail lights on themselves. Agoge was the training program that was mandated for all male citizens in ancient Sparta, except for the firstborns of the ruling houses. Some of the training consisted of being underfed to encourage stealing, but if the students were caught, then they would be punished. The reason that this was implemented was because their master wanted them to become fit soldiers, not fat ones. King Francis I of France in the 1500s bought the Mona Lisa from Renaissance artist Leonardo da Vinci. The powerful drum reverb entrance in the song In the Air Tonight by Phil Collins was an accident when the reverse talkback was activated and left on while Collins was playing drums for another song for Peter Gabriel's 3rd solo album. The 1-ounce gold American Eagle coin is legal tender and is worth $1,295 each. The 1-ounce silver American Eagle coin is the only silver bullion coin that's authorized as legal tender and is worth about $17.50 each. The chemical that's used to flavor grape Kool-Aid is called methylanthralenate. Its other uses are protecting crops such as corn, rice, and sunflowers, as well as golf courses. It's also used as a bird repellent. According to Thomas Greger, an anthropologist at Vanderbilt University, an extra 2.54 centimeters in height correlates with earning $800 more a year. If you take this amount and compound it over a 30-year period, then it would equate to earning hundreds of thousands of dollars more than someone that's only 2.34 centimeters shorter. King James I of England wrote and published a 3-part book about necromancy and demonology technology in 1597. It would take you about 31,709 years to count to the number 1 trillion. Using that fact as a reference, the galaxy called M87 is so massive it contains around 1 trillion stars, according to Neil deGrasse Tyson. There was a referendum to ban alcohol in Sweden in 1922, but it failed with 51% of the voters choosing against it. The decision was split between the sexes, with 63% of women voting for the prohibition and 63% of men voting against it. Jerry Seinfeld turned down $5 million an episode and more than $100 million overall for Seinfeld just to run a 10th season. At the time, it was 3 times more than anyone on television had ever been offered. Aeroflot Flight 593 was a passenger flight from Moscow to Hong Kong that crashed into a mountain range, killing everyone on board. The pilot let his children temporarily fly the plane, but his 16-year-old son unknowingly deactivated the autopilot controls. The pilots ended up overcorrecting and crashed the plane. When astronauts cry in space, their tears congeal in their eyes and end up stinging because of the lack of gravity. In 2011, astronaut Andrew Feustel got some anti-fogging solution stuck in his eye, and tears weren't going to get it out, so he rubbed his eyes on the foam inside of his helmet. Lemurs in Madagascar were so huge at one point in time that they were the size of today's male gorillas. According to the American Association for the Advancement of Science, patients who have a view of trees and natural scenery in hospitals recover faster than those who do not. They gathered this information by observing patients who stayed in a particular suburban Pennsylvania hospital between the years of 1972 and 1981. An 8-year-old girl was orphaned in 2014 when her entire family died from the fumes of rotting potatoes in their cellar. Each family member checked on the other by walking into the cellar, but died instantly when they entered inside. The scene in the film Pulp Fiction where John Travolta gives the adrenaline shot to Uma Thurman's chest was shot in reverse, with the actor pulling the needle away. Director Quentin Tarantino bought a fake chest from a special effects company, but decided just to use that trick instead. Chuck E. Cheese's full name is Charles Entertainment Cheese. The first known human to be killed by a robot was Robert Williams on January 25, 1979. He was tragically killed by an industrial robot arm while working for the Flat Rock assembly plant in Detroit, Michigan. The theme song for the game Tetris is a Russian folk song from the 19th century about a meeting between a peddler and a young girl. He offers the girl his wares and goods in exchange for a kiss. According to Men's Journal, it's completely a myth that balding comes from the mother's side of the family. It actually comes from the genes from both sides of the family. It's also a myth that wearing hats will make you go bald. It's true, I almost never wear a hat. Look at me. The 2004 Indian Ocean earthquake and tsunami was so powerful that it caused the entire planet to vibrate as much as 1 centimeter. It also remotely triggered earthquakes on the other side of Earth in Alaska. In addition to these facts, it was also the longest lasting earthquake ever recorded between 8 and 10 minutes. NBA superstars Stephen Curry of the Golden State Warriors and LeBron James of the Los Angeles Lakers were both born in Akron, Ohio. The colonists on the Mayflower decided to settle at Plymouth in 1620 after 64 days at sea because they ran out of beer on the ship. However, the beer was a relatively low alcoholic formula and was drank because it was boiled purer than regular water. The Higashiyama Zoo in Japan is home to a western lowland gorilla named Shibani, who became known as the most handsome gorilla. His rise to fame was so huge that there was an increase in young women in attendance who wanted to actually see him. The employees had to put up a sign that told people to stop yelling his name in the exhibit because it was making him uncomfortable. According to Karen Shapiro from the University of California, Davis, flushing cat litter down the toilet could in fact kill sea otters with toxoplasma. Cats are the only known hosts of the parasite, and when their feces are flushed down the toilet, snails feed on them. In turn, sea otters then eat the snails. Oregon forest landowners are required to replant trees after a timber harvest. They plant about 40 million new trees every year. In 2014, attendees at the Food Safety Summit in Baltimore, Maryland were sickened by contaminated chicken that was served to them. Trick-or-treating on Halloween was put on hold during World War II because of sugar rations. The Allied forces in World War II debated whether or not to bomb Auschwitz because the Nazis were setting up operations there. there. There was originally going to be a sequel to the thriller movie Seven entitled 8, where Morgan Freeman's character was going to be revealed as a psychic. However, the studio said no, and the script was rewritten into Solace, starring Anthony Hopkins. Backgammon is one of the oldest board games in history, dating back to 3000 BC in ancient Persia. There's an annual tradition in Spain called El Salto del Colacho, which means the devil's jump. This act is also known as baby jumping, and it dates back to 1620. Men dressed up as the devil jump over infants laying on mattresses. San Pedro Prison in Bolivia is known by many to be the most bizarre tourist attraction in the world. The prison allows families of the inmates to live with them inside, and they have created a community in doing so. There are classrooms, small businesses, and even a football field. Tours are available, and they can get up to 70 visitors a day. Certain words from the animated series Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles had to be censored in the United Kingdom, such as ninja, because of a controversy affecting the country at the time. The Anglo-Portuguese alliance was ratified at the Treaty of Windsor in 1386 between the United Kingdom and Portugal and remains intact today. It's considered to be one of the oldest alliances in the world. Drivers in the United Kingdom must report to police if they run over a cat, a dog, a horse, cattle, pigs, goats, sheep, donkeys, and mules, but not badgers, deers, or foxes. City Park in New Orleans, Louisiana is home to the world's largest collection of mature live oak trees, and some are more than 600 years old. In 1969, activists in Berkeley seized a portion of a 3-acre dirt lot where the university was going to build dorm buildings and declared it People's Park. A Florida man was killed by his pet cassowary when the large and flightless bird attacked him after he fell. Martin Scorsese directed Michael Jackson's music video Bad. The same year, he directed The Color of Money in 1986. The official font of the Girl Scouts of America is called Omnis. A Japanese beer called Unconventional was made from the coffee beans that passed through an elephant's digestive system. And you thought coffee made you poop before? Yummy! Crickets are capable of chewing through the screens of your windows, but grasshoppers are actually the biggest problem with this issue. Ireland has its highest population since the Great Famine in the mid-1800s. The population of the country in 1841 was 8.5 million, then declined significantly to 5.1 million in 1851. However, finally in 2016, the population exceeded the 1851 census for the first time. Actor Robert De Niro is actually more Irish than he is Italian. His ancestors escaped from the Great Famine and came to America. Mountain Dew was originally developed to be a mixer with whiskey in the 1940s by Tennessee bottlers Barney and Allie Hartman. Dragonflies are able to eat their own body weight in food in about 30 minutes. When actor Steve McQueen was in the United States Marine Corps, he was demoted to private 7 times for being rebellious. After spending 41 days in the brig, McQueen focused on his responsibilities and later saved 5 other Marines from a tank that was sinking into the sea. He was promoted to Honor Guard, where he was tasked with guarding the presidential yacht of President Harry Truman. There's a bed that's actually bigger than the California King called the Alaskan King, which measures about 2.74 meters by 2.74 meters. The voice actor who played Kimmy Finster in the cartoon show Rugrats is Dion Kwan, and she's legally blind. All of her scripts were written in Braille for her. Hot Pockets were originally called Chunk Stuffers, and they are all manufactured in Mount Sterling, Kentucky. Chunk Stuffers. I'd still eat it, it's delicious. US General George Patton competed in the first ever modern pentathlon during the 1912 Summer Olympic Games. He placed in 5th while causing a controversy at the pistol shooting event. He claimed that he was such a good marksman that one of his bullets passed through another one of his holes on the target. The world's largest Bible factory is in China, and they've printed over 150 million copies of the book. Actor Phil Lamar, who played Marvin in the movie Pulp Fiction, also provided the voice for Hermes on Futurama. According to ancient records, the Buddha recommended eating rice porridge because it had 5 benefits. He claimed that it stills hunger, dispels thirst, settles wind, cleans out the bladder, and promotes the digestion of the remnants of undigested food. NBA legend Manute Bol recorded more blocks than points during his entire playing career. The mascot for the Pittsburgh Pirates baseball team sold the players cocaine in the 1980s. Tootsie Rolls have been certified kosher by the Orthodox Union since 2009. There are only 7 genes in a cat's DNA that determines the pattern and color of its fur coat. In the Harry Potter films, the ghost ghost of a 14-year-old girl named Moaning Myrtle was played by a 37-year-old actress named Shirley Henderson. There were 54 books published on the popular children's series Animorphs between June 1996 and May 2001. They were written by Catherine Applegate and her husband Michael Grant. They wrote together under the name K.A. Applegate. Japan has one of the highest cremation rates in the world at 99.97%. The great Renaissance artist, scholar, and architect Michelangelo sculpted hearts into the statue of David's pupils. The largest eagle that ever existed was the Haast's eagle, but they became extinct 500 to 600 years ago. The females were the larger of the sexes, and their wingspan could reach up to 3 meters across. Believe it or not, sand is one of the most consumed resources on the planet, and we are actually starting to run out of it, according to author Vince Beiser. In 2012, the pizza chain Papa John's was sued for $250 million for spamming people with text messages at all hours of the day. The Chicago Sun-Times bought a dive bar in 1977 and named it the Mirage. They used the bar to investigate an intricate web of bribery and corruption by city officials and politicians. The team of journalists gathered so much information that they released a 25-part expose series a year later in 1978. When you're relaxing your jaw, your tongue should rest gently behind the top front teeth. Your bottom teeth and top teeth should also not be touching, and your lips should be closed but not tightly. Formicophilia is the sexual interest in being crawled on and nibbled by insects, such as ants and other small creatures. The term came from Ratnin Dowadaja and John Money in 1986, which comes from the Latin formica, or ant, and the Greek philia, which means love. The ancient Polynesians who settled on Maui did not have any pottery because the Hawaiian island lacked clay. German scientist Angela Kohler developed a technique for no-kill caviar, where the eggs are massaged from the sturgeon and the fish lives another day. This could make the price of caviar cheaper for consumers. In 2014, the beard on the mask of Egyptian pharaoh Tutankhamun fell off when workers took the artifact out of the display for cleaning. They attempted to glue the beard back on using epoxy, but it became off-center. The mistake was eventually noticed a year later, and the team of Germans and Egyptians reattached the mask using beeswax, which was a material used by ancient Egyptians. Actor, musician, and comedian Jack Black's mother was Judith Love Cohen, who was an aerospace engineer and author. She worked on the Hubble Space Telescope and Apollo space program. After she retired, Cohen founded a children's multimedia publishing company called Cascade Press.